Every piece of jewelry I had ever owned vanished overnight. My husband's sister walked in the next morning, dripping in gold. Smirking, she said, "They look better on me." My husband laughed, "Consider it a gift." Silently, I reached into my pocket and handed him a receipt. His jaw dropped as he read the fine print. I never thought I'd be sharing this, but here we are. I'm a 35-year-old woman, and I've been married to David, 38, for 10 years. We live in a cozy home in the suburbs of Chicago. David's sister, Olivia, 32, has always been a bit of a wild card, but I never imagined things would escalate to this point. Over the years, I've built a modest jewelry collection. Each piece holds sentimental value: a pearl necklace from my grandmother, sapphire earrings from David on our 5th anniversary, a gold bracelet I bought with my first paycheck. They're not just accessories, they're memories. Olivia has always had a fascination with jewelry. Whenever she visited, she'd admire my collection, often asking to try things on. I didn't mind at first, it felt like harmless admiration. But over time, her comments started to make me uncomfortable. She'd say things like, "This would look amazing on me," or, "If you ever get tired of this, let me know." I brushed it off, not wanting to create tension. A few months ago, Olivia moved back to Chicago after a rough breakup. David, being the supportive brother, offered her our guest room until she got back on her feet. I was hesitant but agreed, hoping it would be a short stay. From the beginning, things were tense. Olivia treated our home like a hotel, rarely contributing and often overstepping boundaries. She'd borrow clothes without asking, leave messes for me to clean, and invite friends over without informing us. David would brush off my concerns, saying, "She's going through a tough time. Let's be patient." One evening, I noticed my jewelry box slightly ajar. Upon inspecting, I realized a pair of diamond studs were missing. I searched everywhere but couldn't find them. When I asked Olivia, she shrugged and said, "Maybe you misplaced them." David echoed her sentiment, suggesting I was being forgetful. I felt gaslit but decided to let it go, thinking maybe I had misplaced them. A week later, I had a work event and planned to wear my pearl necklace. To my horror, it was gone. Panic set in as I realized several other pieces were missing too. I confronted David, who remained unconvinced. Feeling helpless, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I purchased a small, discreet camera and installed it in our bedroom, pointing directly at my jewelry box. I felt guilty invading our privacy but needed to know the truth. 2 days later, while at work, I received a motion alert from the camera. Logging in, I watched in disbelief as Olivia entered our bedroom, opened my jewelry box, and rummaged through it. She took several pieces, tried them on, and placed some in her pocket before leaving. Heart pounding, I left work early and confronted Olivia. I showed her the footage, expecting remorse or at least an apology. Instead, she smirked and said, "They look better on me anyway." I was speechless. David came home shortly after, and I showed him the footage. To my astonishment, he laughed and said, "Consider it a gift. She's family." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Feeling betrayed and isolated, I reached out to a lawyer friend for advice. She informed me that in Illinois, theft, even among family members, is a criminal offense. She advised me to document everything and consider pressing charges. That night, I packed a bag and stayed with a friend. I needed space to think. David called and texted, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. I felt like my trust had been shattered. The next morning, I returned home to collect more belongings. Olivia was there, lounging on the couch, wearing my missing pearl necklace and diamond studs. Seeing her so brazenly flaunting my possessions ignited a fire within me. I decided then and there that I wouldn't let this slide. I began gathering all the evidence, camera footage, receipts of the stolen jewelry, and any correspondence with David and Olivia regarding the items. I documented every instance of Olivia wearing my jewelry, taking photos when she wasn't looking. I also reached out to mutual friends and family members, subtly inquiring if Olivia had shown off any new jewelry recently. Several confirmed, mentioning how she bragged about her upgraded collection. This further solidified my case. With all the evidence in hand, I scheduled a meeting with my lawyer friend to discuss the next steps. I was determined to reclaim my belongings and hold Olivia accountable for her actions. I filed a police report the next day. I brought everything: my receipts, the screenshots from the camera footage, even printed text from Olivia bragging to a cousin about her fresh haul. The officer looked through it all, expressionless, until he landed on the photo of Olivia wearing my grandmother's pearl necklace at a local bar. He gave a low whistle. "You said this is your husband's sister?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "But that doesn't mean she can rob me." He nodded. "You're not wrong. But things might get messy, especially if your husband defends her." I told him I was ready for messy. Within a week, Olivia was served with a court summons. Theft. Possession of stolen property. When the officer handed her the papers, she apparently laughed and said, "She's actually doing this." Cute. David didn't laugh. Not this time. He came storming into my friend's apartment, where I'd been staying, red in the face and shaking. "You called the cops on my sister?" I stood my ground. "She stole from me." "You laughed in my face. You chose her." "She didn't mean any harm," he said. "It's family. We can work this out privately." I just stared at him. "You're not hearing me." "I tried to handle it privately. You made a joke out of it." He looked around the apartment like he was seeing it for the first time. Like realizing for the first time I might not be coming back home. "You're throwing away 10 years over some necklaces?" That sentence sat in the air, heavy. "They weren't just necklaces," I said. "They were mine. They were memories. And you stood by while someone stripped them off me." He didn't say anything after that. A few days later, I got a text from an unknown number. "You're gonna regret this. Just wait." No name, but I knew who it was from. Olivia. The court date was set for 3 weeks out. Meanwhile, Olivia kept showing up around town, at the same brunch spot I go to, standing across the street from my gym, even once, accidentally, running into me at the grocery store. Always wearing something of mine. Always smiling like she was untouchable. But the twist came when my bank called. Someone tried to use my identity to apply for a loan. They had my social security number, my address, even a copy of my driver's license. And just like that, the situation went from bad to terrifying. I went into full panic mode, fraud alerts, frozen accounts, endless hours on the phone with banks and credit agencies. I was losing sleep, missing work. The stress was turning into chest pains. When I finally got my hands on the application paperwork the scammer submitted, there it was, a copy of my ID with a slightly different face photoshopped in. Not perfect, but close enough that a lazy lender could miss it. And then I noticed the address listed on the form wasn't mine anymore. It was Olivia's. I stared at the page, numb. Not only had she stolen my jewelry, she was trying to steal my identity. I handed everything over to the detective assigned to my theft case. He raised an eyebrow and said, "Looks like this just became a lot more serious." He asked if I wanted to press additional charges. I said yes. Absolutely yes. David didn't come to the next hearing. I heard through a mutual friend that he moved out of our house and into a short-term rental, said he needed space. He hasn't spoken to me since the fraud investigation started. Good. Now it's not just about stolen gold and betrayal. It's about justice. And I'm not backing down. Not when I'm this close. 2 days after the fraud report was filed, I got a call from the detective again. He sounded different this time, tense. "There's something else," he said. Apparently, while they were digging into Olivia's recent activity, they stumbled across something much bigger. My jewelry theft and identity fraud? Just the tip of the iceberg. Olivia was already being investigated for involvement in a pawn shop scam. Turns out, she wasn't just stealing from me. She'd been recruiting people, mostly friends from her nightlife crowd, to bring in gently used jewelry and designer items. The shop would pay them cash, no questions asked, and then Olivia would take a cut from every transaction. The shop owner had been laundering money for months. And my pearl necklace? My grandmother's heirloom? It had already been sold. Gone. That hit harder than anything. I didn't even care about the money anymore. That necklace was my last connection to my grandmother. Something no amount of court action could bring back. I was devastated. The detective apologized, but there was nothing he could do. Once it was sold and passed through a few hands, it was considered unrecoverable unless the buyer turned it in. Which wasn't likely. But here's where it gets even crazier. When David moved out, I assumed it was to get away from the heat. Turns out, he moved in with Olivia. Yep. I found out when I drove by her apartment building and saw his car parked outside. Same parking spot, 3 nights in a row. I didn't want to believe it. I really didn't. So I called a friend of mine who lived in the same complex and asked if she could keep an eye out. 2 days later, she sent me a photo. David, walking out of Olivia's apartment. Shirtless. Carrying a laundry basket. It took me a while to process that. I wasn't just betrayed by my husband. I wasn't just stolen from by his sister. They were in on it together. It all started making sense. Why David laughed when I showed him the footage. Why he kept defending her. Why he didn't want me pressing charges. He'd helped her. Maybe not physically, but he enabled everything. And now they were living together. I wanted to scream. Instead, I called my lawyer. We added conspiracy to defraud and marital asset misconduct to the lawsuit. Then came the wild card. Out of nowhere, I got an anonymous letter in my mailbox. No return address. No name. Inside was a single photo. Olivia. In our bedroom. Wearing my jewelry. Taken before I installed the hidden camera. And scrawled on the back, check this safe deposit box. I almost didn't follow through, but curiosity won. I had no idea what the note meant. David and I never had a joint safety deposit box. Or so I thought. But when I went to the bank where we'd had a joint account, I asked if David had opened one in recent months. The teller hesitated, then asked me to wait. 10 minutes later, a manager came out. He couldn't tell me anything without a court order, but he gave me a knowing look when I mentioned the letter and said, "You might want to talk to your attorney again." So I did. We filed for a subpoena. And when the order was granted, the safe deposit box was opened under official supervision. Inside? Roughly half of my stolen jewelry. Not all of it, definitely not the pearl necklace, but enough to prove that David knew about the theft. Enough to show that he and Olivia had hidden assets they didn't report. And sitting on top of everything? A printed photo of David and Olivia. In our house. On our wedding anniversary. Smiling. Holding wine glasses. Wearing my jewelry. I couldn't breathe. I'd spent the last 10 years building a life with someone who stood there, silent, while his sister slowly ripped my identity apart. Who then ran to her side the second I stood up for myself. I thought it couldn't get worse. But it did. A week later, David tried to access one of our joint savings accounts, one I'd already frozen. I got the alert right away. When I confronted him through my lawyer, he claimed he deserved compensation for the stress this situation has caused. He said, and I quote, "It's not like she's dead. She gave it to Olivia, technically." I wanted to burn the world down. Instead, I doubled the lawsuit. Criminal, civil, divorce. And it's far from over. It all came to a head on a Thursday. Court had been dragging on for weeks. Depositions. Evidence. More of my jewelry recovered in places I didn't even know David had access to. Safety boxes, random storage units, even a gym locker. The judge had ordered a full forensic audit on both their finances. Olivia's pawn shop scam had grown into a web of legal nightmares, and the state was now involved in a broader investigation. But the confrontation? That happened not in a courtroom, but in the one place I never wanted to see them again, my own home. David still had a key. I hadn't changed the locks yet. That was my mistake. I came by one afternoon to pick up the last few things, an old photo album, a box of books. I thought no one would be there, but I was wrong. They were both in the kitchen. Olivia sitting at the counter like she owned the place, legs crossed, wearing a cardigan of mine that I hadn't even noticed was missing. David at the sink, washing a glass. Like nothing had happened. I froze. David turned first. "Hey," he said, like this was casual. Like this was fine. Olivia just looked up and smiled, teeth bared like a dare. "You're early." Something inside me broke. I walked straight to the living room and pulled out the envelope I'd brought. Inside were the final legal documents, divorce papers, additional charges, financial demands. I slapped it on the counter. David didn't even look at it. He just shook his head. "You're really doing this?" "You broke into my life," I said, my voice shaking. "Both of you. You stole from me, lied to me, humiliated me. And you think I'm the one going too far?" Olivia laughed. "God, you're so dramatic. They're just things." "No, they're not." I yelled. "They were mine. You paraded around in the last things I had from my grandmother. You forged my name. You used my social security number. You dragged my life through the mud while wearing my clothes and drinking from my wine glasses like some twisted role play." David finally snapped. "You act like you're innocent. Like you didn't let this happen. You let her stay here." That was it. That was the moment. I stepped forward. "I trusted you. I believed you when you said we were a team. And when your sister stole from me, you sided with her. You laughed at my face. And now you want to blame me for letting her in." The air got heavy. Olivia's smirk faded. David looked suddenly very small. "You let her take everything," I whispered. "But I'm taking it back now." David's voice cracked. "You never really needed me, did you?" I didn't answer. Behind me, I heard the front door open. My lawyer and her assistant had arrived, scheduled to walk me through the final removal of assets from the house. They stopped cold when they saw us all standing there. My lawyer spoke first. "Everything okay here?" I nodded, though my hands were still shaking. Olivia stood and tossed the cardigan on the floor like it was trash. "This place is cursed anyway." As she passed by me, she muttered under her breath, "You always thought you were better than me." I didn't respond. David didn't move, just stared at the floor. After they left, my lawyer said quietly, "You want me to change the locks today?" "Yes," I said. Today. The aftermath hit hard. The court ruled in my favor. Olivia was ordered to pay restitution, though I'll probably never see a dime. David's assets were split, but most of his accounts had been drained before the proceedings began. Turns out, Olivia had already cleaned him out too. Poetic justice, I guess. The neighborhood had opinions. Some friends pulled back, unsure how to react. Others rallied, bringing wine, dinner, company. One neighbor, Miss Carlyle, a 70-year-old widow who'd always waved from her garden, knocked on my door one evening with a casserole. "I always thought something was off with that sister of his," she said. "And him too. You deserved better, sweetheart." I didn't cry until she left. Now, the house is mine again. Quiet, a little too quiet some days. But peaceful. I keep a photo of my grandmother on the nightstand. Next to it, a single earring that matched to the one Olivia sold. It's all I have left from that set, but it's enough. The betrayal still echoes. Sometimes when I see gold jewelry in store windows, I get a flash of anger so sharp it makes me dizzy. Other days, I just feel hollow. I lost my marriage. I lost my trust. But I found my voice. And now? I'm still standing. Maybe not hopeful yet. Not healed. But no longer fooled. No longer small. Just awake.